Hello, everyone, and welcome to LeeLa. I'm Lee Philbrook. The intention of the LeeLa community is to transform conversations and practices into actions that make a difference. And LeeLa comes from Sanskrit, and it means divine or creative play. It literally translates to your story, and we love to explore others' stories. We're super excited for our show this evening. We're going to kick it off with a quick background on us, your hosts, followed by an opening intention. And we are thrilled to have Tara Canerva with us as our special guest this evening. She is truly a wise and humorous counselor, trainer, mentor, and coach to women. I have had the pleasure of studying and becoming certified with advanced NLP coaching through a company, Inspired Outcomes. This evening, we will discuss how to become more resourceful and explore useful exercises to navigate these challenging times we're facing. You are in for a treat. She's an absolutely incredible human being. We'll then do our closing intentions and final announcements. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We encourage you to have your cameras on and to really create a sense of community. And please feel free to ask questions along the way. So you can either put up your virtual hand or put questions in the chat box. So here we go, over to my co-host, Lisa English.
Welcome to LeeLa, everyone. This is a space where you can all learn, explore, and most importantly, have fun. And through our storytelling, we hope to inspire you all to live a more intentional life. I'm a high school teacher and youth mentor, and I'm really excited to introduce Tara to you all tonight. Like Lee, I studied with Tara this summer doing NLP, and I know how much valuable experience and knowledge this woman has to share. She's really amazing. So I'm really excited for the conversation. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it back over to my co-host, Lee Philbrook.
Well, I absolutely love what I do. I'm a life and career coach who works with women who are feeling discontent with their lives. I guide women to find clarity and a reconnection with themselves, their own passion and resourcefulness. My approach is integrative and heart-centered, using my personal blend of leading neuroscience and energy work. It's an absolute pleasure supporting women to create new possibilities so they can live their best life. I'd now like to do our opening intention that really connects us and holds the space for this evening. So please close your eyes. May divine grace surround us, uphold us, and cherish us all. May it support us and our sacred trust and community. May we be strong together and our journeys be brighter and higher for having walked side by side. May we be guides for others and ourselves with clarity, tenderness, and light, feeling gentle in our minds and clear with our words, being strong in our creations, sending peace in all directions of time. With gratefulness, we take this moment to arrive and join together. Open your eyes. Welcome to the room. And now over to Lisa to introduce our special guest.
Tara Canerva is a master practitioner and coach in NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis. She is a trainer of core transformation and wholeness work. She has a master's degree in humanitarian development and a postgraduate degree in international project management. She has a bachelor's of holistic health sciences and is currently working on her master's and doctoral degree in natural medicine. Tara has lived all over the world doing humanitarian work in education and health, and has always focused on women and women's empowerment. She became an NLP master coach in 2015 and specializes in working with women dealing with all aspects of their life. She is a mother to 3 young children and the co-founder of Inspired Outcomes with her husband, and business partner. Inspired Outcomes is an NLP center in Guelph, Ontario, and they also host trainings around the world. Their mission is to heal trauma and enrich the wellness of everyone they work with. They work every day to contribute to a world that looks inward first for healing and creates wholeness and health all around them. It is now my pleasure to welcome our special guest of the evening, Tara Canerva. Welcome.
Hi, guys. Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And hello to everyone who's kind enough to show up now and those of you who are watching this later.
Awesome.
So
let's kick it off. Tell us about your story, specifically, Tara, your journey to Africa, how you got into coaching and being a mentor for women.
Fun. Okay. Get rid of those. So my journey here, it's always interesting, right? Thinking about where to start and where the journey really begins, right? And I think each one of us as we grow into adults and then we go down this journey of life, finding those particular, like, little pinpoints of your life where the direction changed, right? Where things kind of met in a place where because of that specific thing, I ended up taking this route instead of maybe another route. So it's always fun to go back and, how far back do you go? And my journey was, I don't think that there's too many people who, when they're young, when you're in high school or even before, think about being something like a life coach. It's just not really on your radar, nor probably should it be really that young because you've got so much life to do first, right? And certainly I didn't have any inclination toward it. Initially, I was a music student. My whole professional life kind of moved in the direction of the arts and music. My undergrad was initially in music. But I started to get really, really interested in women's studies, just understanding that there was this whole field of study. In the 90s, I was looking at what I felt like was really progressive at the time and trying to understand historically what had happened and how it fit into now. And so that's really what grabbed my attention at an undergraduate level. And I had gone to school very, very young. So I didn't love high school. So I got out of it pretty quickly and went to university fairly young. And just did a ton of education. So by the time I was 22, I already had a master's degree and I started to travel. And so for me, there was a big draw toward seeing all the different cultures out there and how, as a woman, I recognized that I had this shared experience, but there was just such a wide variety of differences that I knew nothing about, right? I mean, that I just simply couldn't even imagine. And so I was fortunate enough when I did my master's degree, when I was the first one, when I was 21, I was able to go overseas and I was in Israel. I did an archaeological dig over there. And from that point forwards, I think a lot of people who start to travel young get that, I don't know what we call it, itchy feet, right? Where it's hard to stay in one place for very long. And that led me to do a few years of international work. So I worked with organizations who were looking for education or, however I could contribute. But it brought me all through Asia and the Middle East. And so I did quite a bit of work and eventually came home back to Humber College, actually, who were I think it was probably the second cohort that I was in, where they had developed a postgraduate degree in international project management. And that degree required that you had some post-grad work, but that you also had experience overseas. And I tell you this just because I think it's really interesting, now being, 20 years later doing what we do, but I think it's very pertinent to this moment in time as well, that they wanted people who had been in the field, because too often what they were finding was that they had very academic-minded people out who understood the paradigm, who understood, at a high level what was going on, but they didn't know how to put a project together. They didn't know how to run a budget. They didn't know how to, change a tire. They didn't know how to run a team that was, out in the middle of the Congo or something. And then they would bring project managers in, but the project managers didn't necessarily have that understanding of what was needed at a development level, right? Like what was going on culturally and socially and historically. And so what they were looking for was to get this group of people that I was a part of, where you had both this higher education and they were going to teach us those project management skills. So it was a really, really fun experience doing that. And I started my journey there in terms of going overseas, working with women. And I was primarily working in education, but I really, really got to witness firsthand humanitarian workers were my peers at the time. And I was watching this burnout happen. So I was watching these people who had really good intentions, who wanted to go overseas, who wanted to help. But it doesn't take too many orphanages in Africa to walk into before you start to get pretty emotionally torn, right? And it's hard. It's hard work. It's emotionally, it's hard. Mentally, it's hard. Physically, it's hard. There was so much going on. And what Alan and I witnessed was that these really, really spectacular people were kind of going down. Like they were starting to drink. They were getting disconnected from their families. They were starting to be aggressive or, disconnect, and all this stuff was happening. And so somebody who had the training and the skill, who may have been able to contribute, 25, 30 years of their life to something that is just so badly needed in the world, were getting cut short because they didn't have that emotional resilience, that capacity to be able to deal with what was going on. And so that was the very first time that Alan and I think that was in 2008 or something. And my husband Alan had already done NLP training in the 90s. And so he started talking to me about this idea of NLP, and I didn't understand much about it at the time at all. But what he was saying to me was, what if we could intervene? What if we could work with these people to be able to help them have the beliefs that they need to be able to do the work, to have an emotional stability and resilience that will allow for them to be able to do more of what they're doing and more of this good work in the world. And so we started just really, this made my heart sing, the idea of being able to work in this context that I loved so much in this way. But I didn't have any of the pieces together yet, right? And Alan was over there doing the work that he was doing. He has a military background and education and a master's as well in peacekeeping. And so we started just playing with this idea, and then I went ahead and got pregnant 3 times in the next 5 years. So I got preoccupied with with having children. And so it kind of took a bit of a, we shelved it for a little bit. And in the meantime, we came back to Canada, and I got really, really, really excited about natural birthing. And so it was about this time we sort of did this whole turnaround, and it was when I was pregnant with my second child that we started talking about NLP again, but this time it was in the context of natural birthing. Because when I learned about birth, I don't know about other people, but I, sort of thought that you did what the doctors told you, and you went to the hospital and you had your baby and you took the medication that they offered you and all that stuff. And for me, I was just enraged when I discovered natural birthing and learned that, like, this is not how it has to be. It can be different. It can be on your own terms. You don't need to go to a hospital. You don't need to take the epidurals. You can actually decide ahead of time how you want your birth to be. And there are, infinite different ways that you can do it. And there are rituals, and there's just this whole beautiful world that I knew nothing about. And so I got involved in that, and I had my second child at home using hypnosis. And it was this that led me to coaching. So I decided I wanted to take a slightly different path than I had been doing before by working with women still, but now in the field of natural birthing. And so I was just sort of gathering skills, I think, as so many of us do, right? We take the skills that we kind of pick up through our lives and brought them together in a way where I felt like I really, really liked what I was doing at this point. It felt really meaningful. It filled me with a sense of fulfillment and purpose. Until I started recognizing that I wasn't equipped to deal with what I was noticing in these women. So it became pretty clear to me that I was getting very good at birth coaching, you know, like at showing up and being able to help these women with the knowledge that I had around birthing. But what I didn't have was the ability to deal with the anxiety that I was meeting. You know, so women who get pregnant, often they'll come off their medication, right? So they don't want the medication going to the baby. So they may be on depression medication or anxiety medication, and that they come off and they have all their emotions to deal with. And I didn't know how to deal with that. Very often trauma comes up when women are pregnant because it's a vulnerable time, right? Your body is doing things you don't, you know, so there was lots of trauma showing up. People with phobias would end up having C-sections because of their fear of the hospital. You know, there was just a plethora of emotional stuff that was associated with birthing that I wasn't equipped to deal with. And that was when I finally went on my first NLP practitioner course. So it was a very long way to get there, but I went on this course, this NLP course, knowing very, very little. I mean, we'd had these conversations along the way. But when I showed up in Henderson, Nevada for my first NLP training, I didn't know what to expect. And it was just mind-blowing to me. And I know we'll talk about this later, but it was truly mind-blowing for me to imagine that there was a way that I could change my own beliefs. I mean, it seems crazy to me now, but at the time I didn't know that that was a thing that you could do. I didn't know that there was this way that you could actually recognize that there may be a belief within you that you experience as truth that you could change. And so my world sort of blew out at this point, and I came back home just so inspired and so excited to be able to help these women with, you know, all their birth stuff. And I did, and it was thrilling. And then really quickly, I started to get people who would say to me, you know, I have a friend, she's not pregnant, but she has anxiety like I did. Could you help her the way you helped me? And sort of that quickly, I was starting to work with women now who were not, you know, pregnant and not, you know, but who had issues. And so I went on and did my master practitioner a couple of months later, and that was all in 2015. And so since then, I have been working full time as a coach.
Amazing. You never looked back since the very start of your journey.
Not
What a
one.
journey it was too. Wow, Tara. And like you said, perfectly perfect. Like it was a great place to start with those women in the birthing process. And now you're here working with women of all different aspects. So wonderful. And maybe you could explain to us what is NLP for some of the people who are on the call that may not be familiar with it. And how does the unconscious mind affect the decisions we make every day?
Yeah. All right. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. So this is an area of study that was developed by Richard Bandler and John Grinder back in the 70s. And it was a way of modeling excellence. I mean, if you boil it down to its absolute core, it's a way to understand all the information that's coming in. So all of us have filters, as we know. I mean, we're all very unique people. And so we have these filters, and all the information from the outside world comes in through these filters, and we have an inner experience, right? So whether it's words or images or feelings or touch or smell or whatever it is that comes in. And then based on our own filters, because we don't have the capacity as human beings to actually take in that million, you know, bits of information, all the stuff that's coming, we don't count the leaves on the trees as they come in. We have this capacity to just go, oh, that's a tree, and to recognize it as a tree without having to, you know, spend time taking apart the little bits of information. Our brain does this beautiful job of just kind of bringing it in, and then it deletes, it distorts, it generalizes, all this stuff. And it leaves us with what we call these internal representations. So inside of each one of us, if I had 1,000 people here and I said, everybody imagine a cat, you know, and I know that there would be 1,000 different cats in 1,000 different minds, right? And this is really, really, really important. I mean, I think it's very easy to understand, but we don't tend to talk very much, at least in our culture, about how that impacts us. And it's based on our particular image of the cat in our mind that causes us to have certain thoughts and certain feelings and certain ideas and beliefs about cats, right? And so this is what NLP is about. It's about recognizing that when information comes in, we give it meaning. The meaning that we experience within ourselves is based on all of our experiences, all the stuff that we have accumulated through our lifetime, the meaning that has been, you know, unconsciously absorbed around us and consciously discussed and talked about. And then we have ways of being able to kind of shift that around. And so if your particular image of the cat that you see in your head is somehow limiting to you, if it causes feelings of fear or it causes thoughts of, you know, unsafe or something like that, then NLP is a method of being able to adjust and change things on the inside so that your actual response, your actual feeling about those thoughts and those words and everything else are different. And so it really does open up whatever it is that you want, you know, within reason. Not a lot of us can be, you know, Superman, but whatever you want within a reasonable scope of kind of infinite ideas and thoughts and feelings, you can create within yourself. And NLP is the most efficient way to be able to get right to the heart of what makes us us.
Mm.
I feel like you asked something else. Oh, the unconscious mind.
Yeah,
So very, very quickly, our unconscious mind is just it's the driver. It's the part that kind of operates this whole thing. So a really simple way to understand what the unconscious mind is that we're, first of all, it's about 90, you know, somewhere between 90 and 95% of our brain is unconscious, which simply means that it's doing things automatically. So we experience, as human beings, we experience 5 or 10% of our brain as our entire brain, because it's the only part we have access to. It's the part we experience 100% of the time. But really what's going on in the unconscious mind is all the stuff that generates. The conscious mind is like the tip of the iceberg. So a way to understand this is to imagine if I were to say to you, like Lisa, if you could just go ahead and explain to me exactly how you grow your hair. Chances are you can't answer, right? You don't have that down in terms of like
It just happened.
Yeah, it just happens. And not many of us do understand, except that we do. We all know how to grow hair because we do it. I mean, most of us do it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we can't do is we can't take that information that our unconscious mind knows about how to, you know, synthesize proteins and how to, you know, I don't know, turn things into other things and grow hair. We don't know how to take that unconscious information and translate it into something that we can consciously understand. We don't have that capacity. And it's really easy for us to all understand that when we're talking about biological processes, right? But the truth is that that is exactly the same for our emotions, for our thoughts, for our behaviors. So imagine then, Lisa, I said to you, okay, I'm going to explain to you how to grow hair. Okay, so we're going to go take a growing hair course and you're now going to understand exactly how it's done. And as soon as you know that, you're going to know everything there is to know about hair. If I then said to you, now that you know that, Lisa, go ahead and just stop growing your hair, please. What are the chances that you would actually be able to stop growing your hair? Not great. I mean, maybe you could, but not likely. This is precisely what happens when we attempt to use our conscious mind only to stop things. If I were to, again, sort of, you know, we could go into all the explanations of like, how you generate anxiety, how you know, of the millions of neurotransmitters and everything that has to happen. If we were to go into that, it's about as easy for you to stop your anxiety or stop your insecurity or stop that fear or that thought. It's about as easy for you to do that as for me to say, stop growing your hair. Even when you understand it, even when you understand how it's created or whatever, we don't have access normally in our conscious way of living to be able to go into that unconscious processing where it's generated and stop it. And so this is how the unconscious mind works. And so NLP is a way where we actually work with the unconscious mind, where feelings and thoughts are generated, and we integrate it with the conscious mind to create true deep change at a core level.
Mm-hmm. That actually touches on my next question. So it's about limiting beliefs. And a lot of us unconsciously have limiting beliefs and we don't realize we're carrying these around day to day and they're holding us back in life. So can you speak to how those limiting beliefs, they do hold us back in life?
Yeah, of course. This is probably the bulk of what we do. You know, we work with emotions. We do things like let go and release emotions. We work with parts, integrations, you know, inner conflicts and stuff. But probably the most, the bulk of the work that we do that changes lives. You know, when people can work with an NLP practitioner like myself or you guys, and be able to have a different experience of themselves, of the world around them, is by looking at the beliefs that they have. And so a limiting belief is a belief. Just about every belief we have is actually limiting in some way. But we have good beliefs that really support us, right? We have beliefs when I have a belief that I am, you know, worthy and valuable in the world, that's a great belief to have. That's a fantastic belief that is probably going to serve me really well. When we have other beliefs that are you know, associated with any sort of negative feeling, the unwanted feelings that we have about ourselves, the beliefs that, again, they're so tricky because they feel like truths, but they could be a belief like, I'm not good at math, or I'm not a morning person, or I'm not good enough for that person or that job or this job. And of course, these are the limiting beliefs that really get in our way. Limiting beliefs are, like I say, very tricky because they feel like truths. We have this very sophisticated, beautiful mind. All of us as human beings have an orientation to affirm what we already believe. So beliefs just come in at 1,000 miles a second all day long. We have something like, I was listening this morning to some studying, we have like 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. On any given day, that's the best sort of math calculation that we can come up with today, is this idea of 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Every one of those thoughts is structured by a belief. You know, even if I'm saying something like, you know, this room I'm in is pretty big and has 12 chairs in it, I'm still, even though it sounds very much like just a statement of truth, I'm still displaying a belief, right? I've still just let you know that somebody else might walk in this room and say, gosh, this room is tiny, there's only 12 chairs in here, right? It's this idea of perspective, and beliefs are based on our perspective, and then we bring those perspectives in and they form beliefs. And some of our beliefs are very loose and some of them are fixed like concrete, right? I mean, absolutely, you know, central to what we believe about how the world operates, who we are, all that stuff. And so it doesn't really matter whether the belief is very fixed or whether it's looser. We can always adjust our beliefs, and we do it naturally. We do this organically and naturally every day. But for the most part, our brains are designed to affirm what we already believe. And so limiting beliefs are a pain in the ass because we think that we keep affirming those negative beliefs about ourselves. So if you imagine, if you imagine that you have a belief, say, that that you're unlikable. Okay, so say you have this really negative belief that just a lot of people aren't drawn to you, that you don't have that quality of being really likable or something. Now, if you're walking around the world believing that you are unlikable, chances are you're going to be affirming that belief with every time there's an opportunity to affirm it, because this is how our brains operate. This is how we get by in the world. This is how we can look at a thing that kind of looks like a chair, and our belief that chairs look this way and are relatively safe structures to sit on allows us to just go ahead and sit on that chair. For the most part, our beliefs just guide us through life very, very easily, and they do a fantastic job. When they get in the way is when we have a belief like, I'm not likable, and then somebody on the bus looks at us funny, and we immediately go to affirm this belief that, like, see, people just don't like me. And they feel like they've just had data to support that, right? And so it goes back into the mind through all those filters, and it serves to affirm the belief, right? More proof that I am unlikable. And we all know what that feels like, right? We all know what it feels like to go through life kind of accumulating this heavy sense of no matter what I do, people don't like me. And we don't notice, many of us don't notice, some of us do, but many of us don't notice that we're just interpreting it that way. And these beliefs that we have, too often, we do end up in a place where we think that they're unchangeable. And so limiting beliefs are, I don't know, again, limiting beliefs are so commonly associated with how smart we are, what we look like, our personality, and they're very, very, very young when they're structured. So I don't want to go deep, too deep into this, but we do have this imprint period between 0 and 7 years old, and that's kind of when we download our beliefs. That's when the world around us is forming. That's when our brains are in this very hypnotic state. We have theta brain waves all the way until we're 3 years old. We're really just in a trance. We're taking information in, and we believe it because that's what we're meant to do when we're little, is to kind of believe the reality we're born into, and we believe those people that we trust. And so we're just navigating that, and we're laying these maps. And these maps may tell us that we're beautiful and special and impossibly, privileged and grateful. And these maps may tell us that we're not worthy of love. And they may tell us that we're never going to be successful. And all of this, of course, is determined. And by the way, it's not always ill-intended. It's not, very often we assume these negative beliefs about ourselves, not because somebody hasn't nurtured us well, not because our parents were crap parents and didn't give us what we needed, but because of so many confusing misinterpretations, or weird little influences. I had a client who couldn't lose weight, just could not lose weight no matter what she did. And she was about 40 something years old, and she'd always felt just a little bit chubbier than she wanted to be. And those were her words. And when we use a technique where we go back in time, and we're able to get into these quantum positions in the brain that allow us to get above the belief. And as you look down, this little tiny girl, this her back then, had been a toddler, like a cute, adorable, chubby little toddler, as healthy little toddlers are, right? And she remembers hearing an uncle or somebody commenting on how she was adorable because she was so chubby and she was a fat little, toddler, said with affection and love. But she installed this. This became something unknowingly that her unconscious just grabbed onto. And her belief, her core belief of herself, was that she was a chubby, fat, and that made her lovable. That made, all these things. And so there wasn't any ill intent, right? It wasn't that somebody bullied her or, you know, was critical to her. It's just what the mind does. And so often when we're going back to these early years, and that's what we're able to do when we work with the unconscious mind, we're able to identify, because we're working with unconscious, we're in mild trance when we're doing this, these little points in our lives where we accidentally accepted these beliefs, and then we lived our lives as if they were true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've actually answered a couple of my other questions. How really like our past and our problems really do limit us from moving forward. And we aren't always aware of that. And the longer we do that, the stronger those beliefs get. And there, like you said, there are ways to go back and release those and move forward. So, and can you just talk about a little bit what perception is projection means? You hit on it before.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more depth into that.
Yeah, this is again another cornerstone of NLP. Perception is projection, and we all know this. Again, this is one of those things that I think, whenever I explain it to one of my clients, we explain it, and I'm about to explain it to you, but we all know it. I mean, we recognize it as a truth that we have all experienced. What it is this difference between believing that the world is as the world is. So some people would argue that there is this fundamental truth or reality of the world, right? And we very, very often we frame things this way, right? So if you're like judge and jury, or you see a courtroom and they're saying, well, what really happened? You know, what is the truth of what happened? What's the reality of what happened? And the truth is like, well, it depends on your perspective. And we know that this is true. So perception is projection. Perception is projection. Means that what we project, the beliefs, the ideas, the thoughts, the assumptions, all the stuff that we project through our own filters out to the world, is how we perceive it. And so there is no such thing as some sort of objective truth. There is only the subjective truth that we perceive. And so I can give you a few really quick, neat little examples that, again, will resonate with all of us. If you happen to be a person who loves like holiday time, so you love the busyness and if you live in our part of the world, it's snowing and there's all this like excitement and lights and people are super busy, and you walk into a mall, like a shopping mall in Canada, and people are all over the place. And if you happen to be someone who loves this, chances are you're going to be smiling. You're going to be like walking out. If somebody bumps into you, it's like the hustle and bustle of it. You would sort of say like, oh, I'm sorry, and you would keep going. And if there's lots of people milling around, you're going to have patience, all this kind of stuff, right? Your experience is likely to be that people are going to smile back at you, that people are going to pick up on this energy around you. And you're going to come out of the mall saying, look at all these happy people that are, so excited about the holidays and everything else. If you were to walk the exact same path through the exact same mall with the exact same people, but you despise the holidays, and you really feel like people just get ignorant and they get, really rude, and everybody's out for themselves, and people are pushing and they're not paying attention to other people, and they're so caught, you have this terrible perspective. You're going to walk that same path. And when that person bumps into you, guess how you're going to receive it, right? Guess what your mind is going to tell you the reality of where you are. And when all these people are in your way and you can't get to the thing that you want to buy because these people are all over here and they're all, laughing with themselves and not aware of you, your experience is going to be one of frustration, and you are going to leave that same experience feeling like, look at the way people act. People are so inconsiderate, right? And this is how we live our lives. This is not, we all know it can happen to us just simply having a bad day. When I'm in a crappy mood, I'm less likely to experience the world as beautiful. And when I'm in this like jubilant, mood where everything is going right, I'm going to look around the world, I'm going to see it different. And when we take that to a micro level or a macro level, we literally could define an entire life this way. this is how we experience in our personal relationships, in our working relationships, in every context of life.
Mm-hmm. And something just came up for me there. What we say in NLP is to respect everyone's model of the world, and knowing that everybody has a different model of the world just helps us move forward in life and not let our egos get in the way, and our way is the right way. So a kind of a connection to perception as projection.
Yes.
I have one more question for you. What does it mean to be at cause versus at effect? And how does this create major change?
Cool. Okay. So this is a great question. Cause and effect is so fundamental to change. So like when I work with a client, if I summarize the whole process, the entire, I work with people for 3 months at a time. That's how I do my work. And, you know, for the most part, there's some pretty decent change, like some pretty profound life-changing stuff happens. And if I summarize it all, I would say I brought that person from a place of effect to a place of cause. And essentially, effect means that you're at the effect of life. So this is somebody who has a very high fatalistic perspective on life. So being at effect means I don't have much control in life. I don't know how I'm going to feel today or act today or respond today because I don't know what's going to happen to me. And these are the type, we all know them, you all know them. There's a distinct sort of language around people who are always victims. These are people who are always at effect, right? Nothing's their fault. It's always, you know, usually when I ask people about the things that have not gone well for them in life, like their failures in life, so to speak, they'll tell me about all the things that happened to them. Right? The bus showed up late and then I couldn't get there. And then this, you know, this person, and they'll get this string of things that happened to them that stopped them from doing or having what they want. Usually when I ask people about their successes in life, they'll start telling me all the things that they did to make it happen. Right? I made this choice. I went here. I decided to do this, and I stood up, and it's this beautiful sort of story of all the things that they did at cause in order to influence life and create the life they want. This is cause and effect, and it's really, really, really obvious when we see it in those extremes. You know, when we see the people that just like, you know, the people who sit like Nelson Mandela, who says, you know, be the change you want to be in the world, you know, like just absolutely, you know, anything that you don't want in the world, don't have it within yourself. Be what you want to be. And these are like just massively beautifully at cause people. And then, you know, the victims of the world that really, honestly, I mean, it's just devastating to see people who feel as though they have no power. But what's very interesting is that all of us, I don't think that there's many people walking the earth who don't have moments of being at effect. Because whenever we have a problem, if we have a problem, it means we're at effect. Because as soon as we believe we don't have a solution, we then must be at effect. So even when something happens to you, so none of us can control, you know, we get hit by lightning. I mean, that's, you know, there's not much we can't really be at cause about like getting hit by lightning. But the truth is, as soon as you regain conscious awareness, I'm assuming you survived the lightning. As soon as you regain conscious awareness, you can get back at cause, right? I just got hit by lightning. It hurts. How am I going to choose to respond to this now? Right? So even though the choices may be limited, even though the choices may be unpleasant ones, you still always have that opportunity to choose how to respond. So it can be really, really dramatic. It can also be the example I always use, and I apologize to those of you who have heard me say this before, but it's just such a easy thing to slip into. I walk and talk and breathe NLP and have for years and years and years. And I still every single day find myself slipping into this effect place where I end up getting myself stuck. So the example I often use is if I were to say to you, I were to call you Lisa, and I said, you know, today I was going to go grocery shopping, but my husband took the car, so I can't go grocery shopping. it could sound very much like those are just the facts, right? That's just what happened. But that's an affect statement, because the truth is, I probably could have called a taxi and gone grocery shopping, or I could have loaded up my 3 kids in the bus and gone, or I could have walked, or I could have called my mom. I don't know. There's probably like hundreds of ways I could still have gone grocery shopping. Mm-hmm. So the true statement is this: I was going to go grocery shopping today, but my husband took the car, so I chose not to go. The difference is so subtle, right? It's such a subtle difference between I couldn't go and I chose not to go. But the impact of our language, neuro-linguistic programming is all about the language, the linguistic aspect of the language we use, both with others, but also with ourselves. And that slight modification, if I'm at home kind of pissed off because I can't go grocery shopping, and that was my plan, and now my plan is blah, 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 blah. I may be pretty pissed at my husband when he gets home. And I may also not have had a particularly good day because I feel like someone hijacked it from me and everything else, right? If, though, I have changed that little subtle thing where I say, okay, I can't go grocery shopping. What am I going to choose to do instead? I've like reclaimed my day, right? I'm still going to give my husband shit when he gets home, right? I'm still going to say like, hey, man, maybe I've had such a good day that I'm just going to totally forget about it. But I'm not going to have spent the day dwelling in this place where I felt as though my choice was taken away. Excuse me. And this is cause and effect.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. No, it's all good. Once we take responsibility, the disappointment starts to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tara. I mean, I studied with you for 10 days straight for 8 hours a day, and I still feel like I just learned a bunch of new things. So thank you. So Lee's got a few further questions for you. So over to you, Lee.
Tara, why is it so important to reconnect to ourselves and become grounded during these times?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, this is cool. This is, I think those of you who signed up for this, we had said this is about getting grounded again, right? So everything that Lisa was just asking about, these tools all lead to this sense of being grounded. So I think that the world is so different right now. So just to get, present into our moment in time in history. I mean, this is, as we keep saying and hearing, it's unprecedented. So many of us have been just like really feeling like not only are we not grounded, but the ground beneath us, it just doesn't seem to stay still enough for us to even feel like we can get grounded, right? And I have clients that are experiencing a different kind of anxiety than I saw in all the years before. And it's still, I think it's still very, very, very possible to get grounded. But I think for a lot of people, it's so different. It's not, you can't expect right now necessarily for most people to find that old way of being grounded. So many people got accustomed to the familiarity. I said we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Most of us, most of the time, about 90% of those 60 to 70 thoughts we have every day are the exact same thoughts we had yesterday. And when we have the exact same thoughts we had yesterday, we have the exact same response to those thoughts. And so we have the exact same emotions. And so we have the exact same response to those emotions. And so we get the exact same, outcomes. And so, on the one hand, it sounds a bit dreary. On the other hand, it sounds really comforting and familiar. And it's if your life is going well for you, then it's working for you. Why would you change it if it's going well? And so for a lot of people, they may have lived, who knows how long, having this familiar sense of like, they know how to get positive, they know how to get calm, they know how to find themselves when they kind of get off track. And those states are not available to them anymore because the same things are not available, the same thoughts, right? And primarily this has to do with uncertainty. So I don't want to dismiss, I mean, there's so many people struggling financially, you know, whose jobs have been so deeply affected, whose relationships and, you know, all of the stuff. And I would say that more than anything else, it's this uncertainty of, you know, we've all started talking about this new normal, but the new normal is very, very unpredictable right now. And many of us don't really know who's in charge of what, you know, and so the lesson from all this, I as a coach working with women who really, really genuinely have a resourceful place within themselves that they just can't stabilize. What I have found over the last 18 months, but really over the last 6 months, actually, because I would say that like everyone was just kind of like, and then we kind of hit a wall where people started saying, okay, enough is enough. We got to move forward, right? Like, we can't just hang on like this. We've got to figure out how to move forward through this thing, through this time. And so now people are starting to stabilize. And where the groundedness comes from is having to shift your sense of certainty away from all of the external stuff and have it more located within. And this is kind of beautiful. And, you know, if I get really idealistic for a moment, and if I go into my most like beautiful thoughts about what might be happening, you know, on a global scale, is like, maybe this is, while it's detrimental and we've lost lives and we have, you know, seen tragedies and horrible things have happened. If there's a silver lining to this, maybe it's that as a society, we're going to kind of be forced to drop one layer deeper into ourselves, like into our humanity, and realize that we do live in a wildly unpredictable environment. And if we stop expecting those external familiar things to provide us with the certainty that we have grown so accustomed to, that we are taken for granted, and instead we accept that all this stuff out there, like everything outside of ourselves, is unpredictable, that we cannot guarantee the outcome of what's going to happen. But what we can be absolutely certain of is if we can trust ourselves to respond appropriately, then we can let go of needing to be able to anticipate the outcome. So at the end of the day, the only thing that we are ever, ever, ever afraid of is that we can't handle the outcome. We're never afraid of the actual outcome. We're never afraid that we're going to end up alone. We're afraid that we can't handle being alone. We're never afraid that, you know, that the fridge is going to fall on our foot, or that the cougar is going to attack us, or that we're going to fail the test. Like, that's not what we're afraid of. We're afraid that we can't handle what happens. And so when we train ourselves, when we can use this kind of work to stop trying to control that outcome, take our energy away from the outcome, and instead we say to ourselves, okay, I get it. I can do my very, very, very best to influence the outcome. Wanting to influence the outcome is perfectly fine. I would like to influence the outcome of this test in a really positive way by studying for it. Right? I want to influence the outcome of this conversation by doing my best to be respectful and to be considerate and compassionate. But in the acceptance that I can't actually control the outcome, what I get to do is I get to sort of do my very best to influence it the way that I would like to influence it. And then where I put all that sense of certainty is to rest back in myself and say, okay, now, whatever the outcome, I trust that I have the resourcefulness to be able to handle it. Even if it's negative, I can handle that outcome. And I don't know what that's going to be. And finding that peace and that trust that, like, I don't know what I'm going to have to do, man. Like, I don't know how I'm going to respond. But if you have that trust, you can let go. And it allows you to get present. It allows you to live with this kind of curiosity instead of control, which can change a whole life.
That's so beautiful. Actually, Can you actually take us through both the motivation and anxiety model exercises? I think that would be, given what we just talked about, to help people get a sense of how they can actually do this for themselves.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So we'll shift gears here a little bit, guys. So this is a really cool way. So what Lee's talking about is a way to experience, way back at the beginning, I was talking about the internal representations, the pictures in our head that we don't even realize are flashing all the time. They're just, and when I say pictures, I mean like sounds and smells and all the things that memories create inside our minds. And we don't recognize always how they're influencing us and our emotions and our thoughts and everything else. So what we're going to do right now is going to give you the opportunity to kind of experience what it's like to have one of those pictures changed within your own mind and how it affects the rest of the system, the whole system that is you. Okay? All right. So what I'll ask you to do, so wherever you are, if you can just pause, this only takes about a minute, maybe two to do. So if you're able, just kind of pause where you are. And I would like for you to think about something that you're motivated toward. So this could be something super simple, like a recipe that you love to cook, or this could be something you like to study or listen to, or somewhere you like to go, or whatever it is. Okay, so I want you to think about something that you're very motivated towards. It can be more meaningful or less meaningful. And I want you to just bring it to mind. So you're just kind of going to bring to mind this feeling of motivation. And to the best of your ability, just tap into what it feels like when you have this nice, clean sense of motivation within you. Okay. And I want you to notice that there's going to be a picture in your mind that is associated to this. So don't worry about whether it's real detailed or whether it's really vague. It doesn't matter. I want you just to kind of heighten it. So whatever just naturally appeared in your mind that's associated to this feeling of motivation, just kind of bring it up and make sure it's tangible to you. You can see it, it's maybe in color, and it's nice and realistic. And what we're going to do now is I want you to start pushing this image away. So just notice how you feel, and then start pushing this image away from you, as though you could take this image of motivation and you're going to push it so far away that it just like, it leaves the room, it goes through the neighborhood, and as it's moving away from you, it gets smaller and it's actually losing color. It turns into this really dim black and white image. It's like tiny, like the size of like a postage stamp. And now it's all the way across town. It's so far away from you, that motivation. And I want you to notice right now how you feel in your body, in your mind, with that motivation way over there. And in a moment, not quite yet, but in a moment, you're going to bring this back, and you're going to bring it back at lightning speed, and it's going to be twice as big as it was before. So on my count, 3, 2, 1, just bring that image all the way back and let it just come soaring back to you. And I want you to make it twice as big and twice as bright. And let that image of motivation just surround you and be everywhere around you. And as you look at that image this way, notice now how you feel. Notice the sense of motivation in your body. Notice the energy in your body right now. And when you're ready, just to open your eyes, come back in the room. Cool. So what you notice there, guys, is that nothing changed, right? Nothing changed. You're sitting in the same place. You're wearing the same clothes. You're looking at your screen, hopefully. And nothing changed except the picture in your mind. And yet chances are, if you did that, if you actually went through the process and did it, you probably felt different. Lisa, Lee, did you guys notice a...
Absolutely. Just the vividness and the energy and how my body felt changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tangible.
Yeah. I was going to say as well, when we let the image go away, I could feel even my, like the physical part of me just go around my shoulders. And then when it came back, I was feeling all these goosebumps, and yeah, the energy was there.
And so just imagine if you didn't know. Imagine if you were like a student sitting there in class, and when your teacher says, hey, we're going to open our books and work now. Imagine if the picture in your mind of that you associate, the internal representation of working, is like some dusty old picture over there, you know, that like, and you don't even realize that's happening, but you can't get yourself to feel motivated about it. Right. And so these internal images, the amount of change that you can create in your life by just bringing awareness to this, and then deciding that you can change these images. They're yours. It's your mind. You can change it.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
This is perfect timing because I feel like my students right now are very unmotivated. So tomorrow morning, can I do this exercise with them? Like before we start class, is this something that can change their feeling?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to start my day.
For sure. Get them up the peripheral vision, open up their vision, and then do this with them. Yeah, you cannot do harm with this. This is when you're working with things like motivation, when you're working with, you know, the little pieces of our mind that we sort of generalize this way. The only students who won't experience the shifts are the students who are not doing it. You know, you may get the ones that just kind of like, you know, they're all sort of hormonal because they're teenagers, and you know, so they may not do it. But if they do it, I mean, if they have a human brain that does this, they will experience a shift. And yeah, I think as a teacher, I think it'd be amazing to set them up this way. And let me know how it goes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, Lee, you asked about the anxiety model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you take us through the anxiety model exercise?
Yeah.
I think that would be, given what you were talking about earlier, I think it'd be something that would be really helpful for everyone to